What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? So today on the show, we're going to be looking at this.
How the fuck did how did creatures come out of salt water and get on land and know to drink non-salt water? That doesn't make any fucking sense, does it?
That's right, we're going to be explaining exactly how sea creatures migrate and change through evolution to become land creatures, and the different internal systems that come with being able to process high salt content and low salt content, and why we don't just replace like seawater with land air and then somehow gain the knowledge that we gotta drink water too. I don't know how that factors in, but we're gonna find out. So if this interests you, you might want to stay tuned. Alright, now on to the video. Now this man right here, he has some sincere questions. I think, and this is not to be derogatory, but I think that he might have been smoking a bit too much and just had a moment where he was like, what the fuck? I think that's what happened, but we're gonna find out.
Hey everybody, I just had a real crazy idea. I'm watching this video, this guy talking about Moana, and I just had this really weird thought. Alright, you know how some people say that we evolved from fish and all that, right? And then went from fish to mammals and this and that and this and that. How the fuck did how did creatures come out of salt water and get on land and know to drink non-salt water?
Casey said these are the kind of questions you ask when you're high on pot. It's not like, Tiktaalik, came out of the water, immediately started going on land and drinking water. There's a process to it. Now, in case you guys don't know, different sea animals, that being mammals and other types of animals that live in the sea, they actually are evolved to live in certain salinated environments. Certain parts of the ocean that have less saline and the salinity is low, some animals can live there, but those same animals that can live there can't necessarily live like farther out where the salinity is higher. There are some animals like this one crab out there that can live in near fresh water, like where the salinity is very low to where the salinity is a bit higher. Now it's not like way the far the fuck out there or anything, but where it's just it's much higher than the near freshwater kind of ocean. So that kind of gives you an indication that through evolution, animals moved from saltwater to freshwater. Now, I say that because, he assumes that they just walked out of the water onto land and they immediately needed fresh water. That's not how it would happen. They would have to, move inland into the water that has less saline in it, less salt, and then they could move out of water. Because even the saltwater animals need water. They swim in the water and they take in a whole shit ton of water. But you see, the difference is that the saltwater animals like fish and crustaceans and all that, they have systems inside of them that can, filter out all of that extra salt. And they have to take in so much salt water because the actual water in salt water is such a low content that they have to take in all of that salt water. So they have systems geared so that they can filter out all that extra salt. Now, the ones that either live on land or live in fresh water, they don't have those systems. So it's not that, we just all of a sudden needed, fresh water. We always needed water. It's just that they evolved after they moved into the less salinated portions of the water. They evolved a lesser need for, all of that water that they were filtering in. And so they lost the ability to excrete all of the extra salt that was in the water. Now, we do need some salt in order to survive. So it's very key in managing all of the fluids that are in our bodies, like the different pressures. Of course, blood, you think of blood pressure, and that's highly affected by salt. If you have a high salt diet, you could have high blood pressure. Yes, Peachy, salt does keep everything from floating away, so you need to get a suppository of salt, shove it up your ass. David Avocado Wolf. That's who I was talking to. That's who I had in my... I wasn't thinking about shoving something up Peachy's ass. I was thinking about shoving something up David Avocado's ass. So now that you got a background in the differences between freshwater animals and saltwater animals, let's continue with this guy's question.
That doesn't make any fucking sense, does it? You can't sit here and tell me, and it's weird, I just really thought about this. It just blew my mind. If creatures came from the salt water, right, and they went on the land, do they, you would have to theoretically at first, I guess, go back into the ocean to get your food, because if, go through evolution, there really shouldn't be any really sort of food for the creatures on the land.
Okay, so to answer his point here, a lot of mammals and other animals in the sea actually get some of their water from the things that they eat. Like for instance, dolphins, they get their water from the things that they eat, and they have an internal system that generates that water from the things that they eat. Well, it separates the water from the things that they eat. Sharks, on the other hand, have a similar system, but in their system, they have like this internal chemical system that stays pretty buoyant with the salt that is outside, so there's no forces that are acting on it to lose water. So actually, sharks are very different in that they don't really lose a lot of water. While some animals, if they were more carnivorous or they ate meat or something like that, of course, they could still eat ocean food and they would live on land. I mean, we see that now. You have different birds out there that will fish. You have like bears, they eat fish. Of course, none of those were around during the time of Tiktaalik or anything. There were also herbivores in the early sea as animals. And so when, they would eventually, just eat plants. I mean, they would what I'm saying is that at the point where the carnivores separated from the herbivores and the omnivores and all of that, I mean, you would have animals that would eat plants on the land. And if an animal needed to eat meat or anything like that, it would have gotten it from the sea. So, I mean, it didn't just it's not like an amoeba turned into some kind of fucking animal and then they walked on land and were like, oh, fuck, I need water and plant food. Like, that's not how it worked. Also, I would like to kind of show or demonstrate the level of scientific understanding that this guy has, because this is the description on his page. I'm not even going to try to pronounce your name, bro. Supposedly, we evolved from amoeba to fish to birds to lizards to mammals. How? Well, we didn't evolve that way, Big D. We did not evolve that way. It didn't go amoeba, fish, birds, lizards, mammals. Like, it's a bit more complex than that, bro.
Now, yeah, there's creatures that are in the water that eat birds and, stuff like that. I can understand that. But I'm really talking about, think far back, like they say that. Before there were birds, there were fish. Then somehow, theoretically, the fish that was on land somehow developed wings to fly. They say this kind of shit, right?
Nobody says that kind of shit. Literally nobody says it except for people like you. I'm not trying to be harsh or anything. I'm just saying nobody says that.
How the fuck can you go from being in a saltwater pool to knowing you have to drink fresh water to live?
Well, the answer to that would be, for one, they're not in a pool. They were in the ocean, right? And even if they were in a pool, they still needed water. They just had to consume a whole lot more seawater and filter out the extra salt. So they always needed water.
It doesn't make sense. Why do we as humans, we cannot at all drink salt water and live? You cannot drink that shit and live. It's impossible.
I disagree, because I mean, you can drink salt water. It's not the best idea to do it long term or anything like that. I mean, just ask David Avocado Wolf. He drinks salt water 5 times a day so he can stick his ass to the earth. You can drink salt water. It's just not suggested that you do so, because we don't have the internal systems in which to filter out the extra salt. It'll damage your kidneys, it'll cause you to dry out faster, and it'll cause you to be thirstier, because that's just how our bodies work.
We all know that. So even with an evolution of some sort, we should be able to still drink salt water, right?
We can still drink salt water. We just don't need to, nor can we drink it long term.
So how can a creature evolve out of water to drink fresh water? That's the question I'm asking. How can a creature that was born in water, salt water, water, start to drink fresh water. Now,
Okay, so there are certain fish out there that can live in both environments. They would have both of these systems. There are certain sharks out there that can live both in the salty sea as well as in freshwater lakes. I know that might scare the shit out of you, and the next time you go out to lake what the fuck ever that's near you, but it's in very specific instances. Like in, I believe it's in Australia, there's this one inlet that sharks are known to swim up and swim into the inlet and be in these freshwater areas. And so you got to be careful about that. Also near me, there were a few sharks that have been known to swim from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up the Mississippi River into the Tennessee River and everything and make their way there. So, I mean, there are fish that can do that kind of transition. For the most part, generally, a fish that is born in the salty water is not going to be able to make that transition to the other water because, the fresher water has a lot less saline in it. They still have these systems that filter out like a lot of salt. And so they would essentially die from, I guess, not enough salt in their system or way too much water. I guess they would essentially drown, right? I think so. I mean, if you think about it, too much water equals drowning. I gotta read this comment by Michelle, an essay by Peachy. Evolution takes a long fucking time and things change as they adapt to their environment, such as living around fresh water. Why is that so fucking hard to understand?
Now there is this thing I seen in the ocean, and it was pretty fucking cool. It was where the salt water met the fresh water, right? So are you going to tell me that even then, so there were creatures that were in the salt water that went over to the fresh water and was like, oh yeah, I can breathe and drink this shit?
Well, no, that's not exactly it. They would have to gradually move from the salty water to the fresher water, and it's a gradual process. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. It's logical. If a fish that lives in very low salt can eventually move into a no salt area. I mean, I'm sure that there are some fish out there that live in either very low salt or freshwater. Like, I don't think that he really researched this before he turned on the camera, so we should probably give him a little bit of a pass. I don't know if he's actually figured out evolution since this video.
When they tell you can't take a saltwater creature and put it in fresh water because it'll die, and you can't take a freshwater creature and put it in salt water because it will die. What the fuck does that mean?
They have these systems that are intrinsic to their bodies, filter and use water in different ways. The saltwater fish are going to be more, they're going to be used to having to ingest a whole lot more water to get the amount of water that they need, like a lot more salt water to get the amount of water that they need. So when they get to fresher water, they would be ingesting a whole bunch of water because that's what they know, and they would be getting no salt, excreting the salt that they already have, and they would drown themselves in water. A fish drowning in water. That's kind of weird to think about.
That it really doesn't make sense, does it to y'all? I'm just wondering, really, because as I'm sitting here thinking, this is the first time I've ever thought this, and I don't think I've ever heard no one say this before, to be honest. No, I haven't. But that's that right there. I'm gonna go look that up in just a second. But somebody hit me up, like, just let me know what y'all think about this, because this is crazy as fuck. Like, I'm sitting here thinking about this, and it's like, that's like, what do they call it? Reverse osmosis? But you can't pull a reverse osmosis from not accepting to accept. Like, poison's always been poison. Poison has never changed.
Reverse osmosis. That's not what he thinks it is. Reverse osmosis is when basically if you're trying, how like when you're trying to filter water, like salt water to fresh water, basically you have a filtration system and it catches like all of the salt and all these other minerals and whatnot, and it just leaves the fresh water. Well, reverse osmosis is just the opposite. You have, your salty water, and you basically force the salt through the filtration thing back into the fresh water. That's kind of reverse osmosis, or at least that's how I understand it.
There are people, like, there's this guy, he gets bit by snakes. I think the dude's dead. I don't know if he is or not. But he has like a snake farm, and he injects himself with all kinds of snake venom, right? So he could have antibodies. And I've heard, through them shits, I don't know if it's true or not, they said that they use his blood for antidote, supposedly.
Well, I mean, yeah, you can build up, like, that's how a lot of snake handlers, like, they'll do it. I mean, they'll give themselves, maybe they do, maybe they let the snake bite them, and then they give them the antidote because it allows their body to build up these antibodies so that, if they do get bit, then they won't die, basically. That's how it does. And then, of course, the person that has these antibodies in it, you can take their blood and develop an antibody with it. Or antidote.
but it's still poison to everybody else. And that's one man out of what, maybe billions of people that can do something similar. So that makes me ask and beg the question once again: how the fuck can a creature go from drinking salt water and eventually learning that it needs some sort of water? Because the thing is, I mean, maybe their gills filter out the salt. I don't know, but
Well, no, he's a little wrong there. Like, the gills don't filter out the salt. They have other systems in their bodies to filter out salt. The gills are what actually lose the water. Their water is lost through their gills and through their skin. That's where they lose their water. And the reason why they lose water and why we lose water in general is because water reacts to pressure. You know, it seeks like a chemical balance. And so if you have a higher concentration of water, it's going to move to a lower concentration of water. Think about two jugs, like one's above the other or something like that. You know, they try to seek level and everything.
I don't know. I think there are creatures that can go back. I don't know, because I know there are even freshwater dolphins. There are freshwater dolphins.
Dolphins are kind of odd because dolphins, they, like the saltwater dolphins, the dolphins that we know, they have like their internal systems, like I said before, they get it from what they eat. So my guess is that the freshwater dolphins wouldn't necessarily have that particular kind of system inside them. My guess is that they would still need to like drink the water that they're in, maybe. I'm not sure, but they're obviously different in that freshwater dolphins can't be in the salt water because they wouldn't be able to have enough water.
But I've never heard of those dolphins going, into the ocean. Now, I do know of, what are they, trout? Are they trout? Yeah, trout. Trout go, but it's a process though. They go from saltwater fish to freshwater fish. But we're talking about going from saltwater to breathing air, and from breathing air to drinking fresh water. You kind of see what I'm saying? That's a three-peated process right there that...
Even the fish need air. They pull the oxygen out of the water through their gills. So, I mean, you're not replacing air with water and all. I'm not exactly sure what he was meaning there, but obviously it was pretty fucky.
I don't know. Because why would your body... I mean, I guess because the sun will make you sweat out the salt, and so you would still need a form of water. But how many... I don't know. Just hit me up. Tell me what y'all think.
Well, man, what I think is that you really don't have a great grasp on evolution and that you need to do a bit more research. Of course, this was posted back in 2017, and so I don't know if you've bothered to research it anymore or really even given any more thoughts about this line of questioning that you have here. But what I would suggest is doing just a little basic Googling in order to come up with the answers. Instead of, presumably getting really high, turning on the camera, and asking YouTube to give you the answers. I honestly really hate it when people expect me to go out of the way to explain simple shit to them that they can just Google. But hey, you recorded a video, you uploaded it to YouTube, and put 5 minutes worth of your time into it, so there you go. I responded to you. I don't know if you'll actually see this, but hey, at least I was able to educate you heathens out there. If you liked this, then please leave a like down below. Also, while you're down there, make sure you leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts on my information here. Whether I fucked up or not, I don't know. I feel like I researched this pretty well beforehand. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice.